Welcome guys, today we're going to make Irish stew. So the first thing we do here is go through our ingredients and equipment needed. So we're going to need a tongs, a peeler, a small knife for peeling the potatoes and a chopping knife. We have our board set on our towel so it doesn't slip. We have a non-stick pan which we're going to use to brown our meat. I'm going to turn that on full straight away. Second pan we have here, we're going to do our veg in, so I'm going to turn that on to number 3 right now. I'm going to add a little bit of oil to each. So next up, we're going to take our meat and we're going to brown that in the pan here, in the non-stick pan. You can do that in the pot, but I find browning it in the pan is easier. You can get it nice and brown exactly the way you want it. So the other ingredients we're going to need today. So we've got 360 grams of lamb. I've bought it already cut, all ready to go, diced lamb. We have roughly 100 grams of celery. I'm going to use the leaves as well. I'm going to keep them back till the end and chop them in at the end. I'm also going to use about 150 grams of white onion, which I'm going to dice. We're going to use a couple of cloves of garlic. In at the back here, we're going to use 2 stock cubes. We're going to use about 300 to 350 grams of carrots. We're going to use about 200 grams of turnip or swede. And we're going to use about 800 grams of potato, because we like our potatoes. And this is an Irish stew, so had to have potatoes. So here we go. I'm just going to take the lamb. I'm going to let that pan just get a little bit hotter. While I do that, I can start to prepare my onion. So our onion, we're just going to take one side off here, because I think if we keep this side on, it's not going to cause us to cry as much. So there's a tip. So we just peel the rest of it. So then the onion I want to have in sort of in a dice, but not fine dice. So I'm just going to cut it across and cut it down. If you notice on the board, I always keep this hand in a claw. That helps make sure that there's nothing sticking out so the knife can cut. So you always pull your top of your fingers back. And also it helps you to grip. It's the same here. We go 4 ways that way, and we just go down this way to finish the cut. Now I can feel my pan getting a little bit hotter, so I'm going to take my tongs. I'm going to start to add the lamb in. The sound is always nice. So see the fat bit there? We're going to try and render that down. Try and get a nice brown colour on the lamb. So you can see with the portion here, about 360 grams of lamb. I'm probably going to feed 2 to 3 people, possibly 4 with this. So if you've got a bigger family, just double the recipe or whatever it takes. You'll pretty much know what your family likes to eat in regards to quantities of potato. Some of that potato I'm actually going to use to thicken the stew, but you can play around with some of the amounts. If you don't like carrots so much, you can cut that back. Now, so I like to make sure there that everything has a little space. And we never keep it off the heat for too long. So I still have a couple of spots in the middle. That's perfect. I'll just fill that in. If we put too much on, it stops frying and it starts kind of steaming. That's not what we like. As soon as we put that in, we just leave it. So that's our lamb. So our onion is cut. Now I'm going to slice the celery. As I said, I'm going to keep the leafy bits. I'm going to cut those into a fine dice. I'm going to keep them as a garnish for later. So the celery again, I want a kind of a medium dice on the celery. So I just cut the strips down the center, maybe down again. That leaves me with nice medium sized dice. Meat is browning nicely. I don't put salt and pepper on it. I will season it with pepper in a little while, but I won't season it with salt quite yet, because that starts to take out the juice out of it, which I don't want just yet. So there's my onion and celery, so I'm going to put that in the second pot. Now, haven't heard any noise there. I'm also going to turn on my extractor. Now, so the meat's doing nicely there. I'm just going to turn up the onion and celery again because I didn't hear anything once I put it in. So I'm also at this stage just going to really fine chop my garlic here. I'm going to use the garlic for a bit of flavour, just to flavour up the lamb. So my meat, as you can see, you can probably hear, beginning to caramelize. You can hear the crispy little sounds. That's a good sign. I like that one. So I'm just going to turn all those. We're taking the time just to get each piece turned and make sure they're all doing exactly as we want. Now at this stage I'm just going to season the lamb with a little pepper just to start the seasoning process. This is a very simple recipe. We're only going to do exactly what we need to do. We're only going to add exactly what we need to add. So pepper first. Going to give that a nice coating of freshly ground pepper. I'm also going to add the garlic in at this stage, just so that garlic will fuse with the lamb and give a nice hit. Now at this stage I'm just going to measure out some water. So I'm going to measure out 1 pint of water, 1 pint of cold water. And once I feel the bottom of the lamb is browned, I'm going to add that water in. So we'll keep going. I'm just going to get a wooden spoon here for my onion and celery. I always like a wooden spoon when you're dealing with metal. Never put a metal spoon into a metal pot. To me that's just all wrong. That's what your wooden spoon is for. Now, so we're going to soften that onion and celery. I'm actually going to add salt and pepper to that. Whoops, put the camera there, sorry guys. So salt and pepper going in there. Now, my meat is brown, so I'm going to add some water in. I don't want it burning. I don't want that black burnt taste on anything, so I'm going to get the meat in, or the water in there. And that's automatically going to make my stock. I'm not just going to use flour. I'm not going to use tomato puree in this. I don't think we had them back in Ireland in 1800, so I just want to do it like great grandma did it. So the onions and the celery, they're sweating off nicely. I'm going to let them sweat down a little bit more. So the carrots I'm going to peel. Again, just with a peeler, top to bottom. You don't need to be really fussy with these, because if they're nice fresh carrots, a bit of the skin isn't going to do any harm. So as you can tell, I like carrots, so I never like to leave myself short of carrots when I make this. So you may want to cut back on 1 or 2 of those. Now, so with the carrots, we have them peeled. We're just going to top them. Then we're going to chop them. So again, your hand is a claw. It's gripping the carrots. The knife has only been asked to do one thing, and that's go down. There's no fingers there, so off it goes. Nice and safe, secure. You can tell my board isn't moving because I've got it secured with the cloth, which also helps. I'm going to get this carrot into the onion and celery. I like the carrot to sweat off a little bit too. Here we are. My water here is coming up to the boil, which is great. Now my last 2 carrots. Now since the carrots in, get the sweet done as well. Now sweet, I've already cut this, you can tell. But sweet can be difficult to cut, so always when you're cutting it, you know, for something big like this, maybe try to get a sliver off it and then give it somewhere that it can stand like that for you. Also, when you're using your knife, you really use the full width, the full length of your chopping knife. You put it in and you press down. Again, there's no chance of cutting anything here except for the Swede. So when I cut it down like that, then I just trim it off. So I just trim the outsides, and then when I'm cutting this, I just cut it in strips. And I'll cut again in dice. Now I'll add this to my carrots. I'm going to add another pint of milk in there, or pint of water, sorry. Pint of water. There's 2 pints so far we're at. So I just want that to come up to the boil nice and quick. So I'm actually going to add both of them together. So So there we are. I've got all the nice juice out of my pan. It's nice and clear. I've added that into this one, and I'll take this back onto the big ring. Turn off that ring. There we go. You see that? There we are. We're on our way. So now I've added 2 pints. I'm just going to add 1 more pint at this stage. It's 3 pints altogether of water. This stage 2, I can add my stock cubes. I'm going to use 2 stock cubes for this. I'm going to use a vegetable stock cube, and I'm going to use a beef stock cube. You could use 2 vegetable, you could use vegetable and chicken, 2 chicken, whatever you got. So now the object now is to get this up to the boil as soon as possible. So I'm going to put the lid on, and I'm going to deal with my potatoes. So I'm also going to use maybe another small bit of this. So I'm going to cut off another piece. It's one of those things, if you keep leaving it in the fridge, it never gets used. So it's nice to have a reason to use it. So that can go in, lid back on. Now with the potatoes, 2 of these potatoes I'm going to use as my thickeners. So 2 of them I'm going to peel and I'm going to slice into small dice. So I like to use a knife to peel potatoes because I guess that's just the way I've always done it. So basically what's left in this is I get the diced potato in there, and then we cook it out. And when I say cook it out, this stew is going to take, I would say, a minimum of 1.5 hours to cook. So what I want to happen now is I want that to get back up to the boil as quickly as possible. I want to control the boil so it doesn't boil over. I want to stir, and when I stir, I'm just going to give you a show of how I stir it. When I stir, I get all the way around to the sides. That's why I always use the wooden spoon, because that's trying to pick up if anything got caught or left on the bottom. So there we go. Now, so to dice these, I'm just going to slice a bit off the sides, turn them around, slice them into thin slices. Then I can take 3 of those and slice them down. I can cut them into a nice small dice. They don't need to be all the same size for this. This is all going into the stew. But it's nice to get them nice and small so that they'll break up and they'll really thicken this stew well. So I think you'll agree those were simple ingredients, and I think you're going to be very impressed by how simple this is, and by how simple it is to get it tasty. You know, for a start, you're dealing with lamb, which is a very flavoursome meat. It doesn't take a lot of lamb to make a good lamb stock, you know, and generally any bits of lamb meat that you're using, they do tend to generate their own stock. The reason I've added stock cubes is I'm dealing with 3 pints of water. So I've got to flavour up those 3 pints of water. Now the lamb will do some, the vegetables will do some, but I like to just help out with a couple of stock cubes as well for that volume of water. So there we go. That's our 2 potatoes, nice and diced. As I said, they'll help thicken everything up. So the last 3 potatoes I'm just going to cut in half. I'm going to set a timer for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, I'm going to add them to the stew. And then we're going to set another timer for another 45 minutes and check our stew again. Okay? So they will be added to the stew in 45 minutes time. Hey guys, so 5-10 minutes in, it's already boiling. I'm just going to turn down the heat from 6 down to about 3.5. As I said, just to control the boil. So we're back. It's been about 35-40 minutes. As you can see, I've had that boiling nicely, rolling away. Just give that a quick stir. For the last portion, I'm just going to leave the lid off, because that will help to reduce and thicken it as well. So I'll just grab my potatoes. Just had a bit of cling film on them. Stop them discolouring. So I'm just going to add those in. Now the only thing we have left is to wait literally until those potatoes are cooked. So as soon as those potatoes are cooked, we should be good to go. We can adjust the seasoning. Probably need a little bit of salt at the end. We're also going to chop up our celery. We might get a bit of rosemary and a bit of parsley in there just to garnish. Okay, so we've just added our potatoes. We've kept the lid off. Again, we're going to let that roll away for about another 35-40 minutes. Okay guys, welcome back. So we've been cooking that away for roughly about an hour and a half. We roughly went 45 minutes before we added the potatoes in, 45 minutes since. I've just got the celery here, I've got some nice fresh parsley, and I've got some rosemary. So I'm just going to cut all this nice and fine, just add it in. I just chopped through that, gather it together. Chop down always with your hand in a claw, so the knife is just sitting off the back of your finger, just going straight down. Another fun way to chop is just leave it there, just let the knife do the work. Just walk the knife through it, and it gets a little bit messy. So you just have to figure out. Then of course there's this. So you're just holding the knife, chopping through the other side. This is the most effective one. Now, so we're just going to throw most of that in here now. Just going to leave a small bit for garnish. So stir that through. There we go. Just made first Irish stew. Woohoo. Now we're just going to plate that up. So we've cooked everything through. See the potatoes started to break down. So we're going to look for a couple of those bigger potato pieces. Maybe 2 of those a portion. See our meat is nice and browned.